Alright, the floor pans that I was gonna use, I'm not gonna use just because. So we actually used this like really heavy airplane stripper, stripped them down, took all the glue off, and you can see they're pretty heavily pitted in all of the same areas. That's extremely pitted, and this is the section I need. So there's really no point in trying to use this. I mean, granted, if I have a low budget truck that literally doesn't have floors, I can cut these out and use them, but really there's no point in using them for my truck. So what I ended up doing was ordering new floor pans from Dennis Carpenter, and you can see I just got them right here. This is the driver's side, and then passengers underneath it. They're really big. There's a part number right there. So it's all the same stuff, but yeah, we're gonna cut out literally, I don't know, probably from here, basically this entire floor section. So from here up to about there, and then over, and then across the top right here, because this is all clean metal. So I'll find a common spot right here I can use. I'm gonna tie it back into this. So I need to cut a little bit of that because this floor pan goes all the way back here to all the way up here. So I don't need that much. So I'm gonna cut probably a good 5-6 inches off the top of it at least. Probably more, but I really just need this floor piece because you can see it's very bad. Like very bad. So I'm gonna sweep some of this just rust out because it's got about a good few ounces of rust just like chilling in here. You can see it literally looks like dirt. It's not dirt, it's all rust. It's a little bit of dirt, but mostly rust. So I'm gonna sweep it into here just so I don't really have any lying around. Alright, so what I ended up doing is going and cleaning everything up. I kind of wire brushed this area and just vacuumed everything out, so it's pretty clean for the most part. And what I ended up doing was just marking out where I'm going to cut. So I could replace the entire floor, but really there's no reason to. This isn't that bad. I mean, it is a California truck, but this is scraped down to bare metal. That is legitimate bare metal. That's not primer. That is the actual metal, and that is clean. It's extremely clean. So there's a little bit of rust starting over here, but this is actually a heavy surface rust. You can see it literally chips off, so it's going to be barely pitted, but I can actually wire wheel and strip that whole section and reprimer it, and it should be okay. So going all the way back over here, there really isn't any large pitting until I get over in this corner, which goes all the way into the seam, and I have right in between the two layers of metal for the cab mount and the floor, there's a big hole here, and it kind of just starts to get really heavily pitted all the way down the back of the floor. Now, this floor pan only comes with the section that your feet go in. It doesn't really go anything past here, but I could end up cutting this out, and actually this is a really easy piece to replace considering it's just flat sheet metal. So I go to any metal store and pick up the same gauge thickness metal and just actually cut this out and replace that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now just because it's simply, there isn't a hole anywhere. I do need to cut this section out so I can get this hole fixed. And one thing to keep in mind when cutting this out is I can cut this section normally, but when you get over in here, this is actually the cab and the floor are welded separately, so you can see there's two pieces of metal here, and it's got spot welds all the way down, so you can actually see on the underside that we've got two pieces of metal that kind of go together, and there's actually no holes on the actual top of this plate. So what I'm going to do when I'm cutting this out is my tape line is right about here, give or take, and I'm going to cut that out normally and go up to this mount and over first. And I'll cut that section out and I will follow this line all the way around. And I'm pretty much gonna cut it from the bottom and make sure that I'm good there. And then when I come back and I can actually see this section, I'm gonna cut this out separately because it's this part of the cab mount and I don't really wanna mess anything up there. Although I can probably get away with cutting it up to the top of this little circle and over and kind of just plating that whole area, because I mean the cab mount's all the way up there. There's plenty of other structural rigidity still in it, so I could probably get away with cutting out this one corner and just doing a flat plate of single plated metal rather than 2 plates. But still, I want to keep the same overlapped metal here because this is where the running board goes, and you can see all the little holes that still need to stay there. So I want to make sure those are still there. So what I did was I kind of took a screwdriver and lifted up the metal a little bit just so I can make sure I can see where that line is. And there's a factory little seal in here that I left that part, but I actually scraped it out here so you can totally see where the metal's separated. But yeah, I am going to start by cutting that out. I'm going to cut out, like I said, it's probably right around here, and it goes up and then up and around and comes back in. And then I want to make sure I can see that section, and then I can see it on an angle from the top. It'll be a nice hole here, and then I can cut out whatever else I need. And I'll probably scrape off and grind off the top of the old floor, because I don't want to be cutting this entire thing out, because the actual cab portion is fine. It's the floor that's pitted. So I want to make sure that I'm just kind of lifting and cutting it out and grinding the top of it off rather than cutting the whole section out, because I don't really need to, and I really want to keep these holes because they're perfectly aligned with that running board piece that goes all the way down this. So I want to make sure I keep that. Alright, so I'm going to use this seam. This is the seam I was talking about, where the metal kind of folds over and it's spot welded all the way down. You can kind of see the spot welds all the way down it. And so I'm going to go right across this line up to it and literally go around it and just trace this out. And you can see right where the cab mount starts, I've got a bunch of holes here. So to start out, I'm just going to kind of go up to it and then over. But I believe I'm going to probably take it out up here. And what'll end up happening is I'll weld the factory replacement floor pan in, and then I'll have to get another piece of metal and make it myself and replace this section of the cab mount. So I have to kind of replace both pieces and weld them together. So I think to start out, I know my tape line goes right about to where this kind of bump is in the floor. So I'm going to kind of pretty much just go up all the way to here. I'll probably start down here and just make a straight line all the way back, up and over, and then back in this way. Make it as straight as I can, and then come up and over. And I'll probably just trace this line up here. And then I know my tape is right about here, which is, you can tell this is all clean metal. So I'll probably go up here and then straight down and then up to wherever my other cut line is, and I'll do the rest of it up top so you can kind of see. It'll all make sense when I do it. But I'm probably, for now, I'm just going to leave this section because of the cab mount. I don't really want to interfere with that yet. I will be though, so I'm going to have to cut out a good 3-4 inches of it and then replace that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just trace this one line and we'll start there. And you can use an angle grinder, but I feel like using one of these is a lot more controllable, and it won't heat up the metal quite as bad. So I want to be really like gentle with it. Another good one is a little air, kind of like mini hacksaw, I guess. That will be really controllable, but I'm just taking it really easy with this. So this will get the job done just fine. So sometimes when it gets really close to like being cut, you can't really get in there. Just use this little wood chisel, just split it. So I've got all this cut out pretty much right where I want it. I can always go back and finish and fix stuff. You can see the 2 pieces of metal right there. So this will probably get lifted up and off. I'll grind all that off, separate these 2 pieces. Up here, I actually kept grinding and I did not cut the cab mount, which is good. You can see I didn't cut it at all. So I'm gonna try to finish this section. This is gonna be a pain in the butt, so I'm probably gonna go right over to as close as I can get it without hitting this, and then finish it with a Dremel, and then probably take the Dremel and just go down here, because you can see it kind of gets all rusted and weird. And then I'll probably take this guy and just hit it with a hammer and chip out of the way, and then try to split those 2 pieces, and then I can lift this whole piece up and out. And then I'll have a nice big hole. So before I completely cut this thing out, I'll show you what I did. So I kind of went up the cab mount to separate it, and then up and over and back up here. You have to go pretty deep and then cut it, but it's not actually cut on the other side. It's just cut on this cab mount section. And then I just followed this line all the way up and then over. Kind of got a little bit messy right there, and then put the angle grinder pretty deep inside of here and back over. I switched to the angle grinder because I have a 15 amp breaker on the circuit I'm using, and then the air compressor is 15 amps, so I kept blowing it and it was getting kind of annoying. And then just went straight across here, and then I'm just going to take a Dremel tool to kind of finish this guy off, and then it should just pop right out. And that'll pretty much separate it. So really, once I weld the floor pan in, I'm only going to have to reconstruct just this tiny little piece, and then this tiny little piece, which really you don't need that much. I can just weld straight to the other panel and just kind of fill this hole. I'll probably make a little plate to go around it, but yeah, it'll all work fine. And then so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this guy out with the Dremel, and then it should drop out. What the heck? Would you look at that? Floor. Ew. Alright, so now you can actually see all the dirt and rust that was actually inside of there. So basically I'll remake this piece. First I'll get these two pieces separated and all the rest of this metal off. So I'll continue cutting over. I think I'm going to have to right here. I'm going to lift this piece off and then make the new piece that'll pretty much cover this, and then I'll re-weld whatever pieces I need on the back side of this. And it should be pretty simple actually, but it's going to be kind of a pain to fill that, and then there's a couple other spots I messed up on, but everything else looks pretty straight and should be pretty easy to get it to fit in here. And the reason I'm kind of like, I went up on a surface like this is because there was corrosion around this area, and I have to have a flat surface to use the kind of like clamps that I'm welding with. So I wanted to make sure that I was on a flat surface, but I was also away from any corrosion, so I didn't leave anything corroded. So that's kind of why I did that. So now I'm pretty much going around this and separating all the spot welds along it. So I took a chisel and a hammer and just kind of put it underneath it and smacked it a few times. And then kind of pulled it up. And you can see it separates the two pieces, and then I can take a cutoff wheel and just cut off sections of it and then grind down the rivets. And there it goes. Alright, so I've got my new panel, my old panel here, so you pretty much see the difference. I don't need this entire thing, but I kind of mocked it up generally. I'm using the factory lines to kind of mock it up and give me kind of an estimate of where I am. And so I'm probably going to initially start by cutting this out relatively somewhere around here and then up and over, because I really don't need the entire panel, and it'll be a lot easier to fit something this big rather than a full 3x2 section. I don't need that much, so I'll probably start by just making a simple cut, not really taking very many measurements. I just know I'm probably about an inch up and out on each side, and it'll make it a little bit easier for me to make that. And then I can pretty much from there kind of figure out where I need to be and slowly trim off. I don't need to start by trying to get it first try, because I'll probably take this thing in and out of the truck a good 20-30 times before I get it right. So it's going to take quite a lot of work to get it to fit right. So don't really try to do it the first try. Just cut it out large and just slowly take off, bend it and make it fit, and hopefully it'll fit good. Alright, so I went ahead and took a piece of tape and marked it about an inch out on each end. So I know I have about an inch to work with on this side. So if I kind of move that in like that, you can see I've got a pretty good amount of room here, and I still have a good amount of material here. And then I got plenty up here. I probably don't need to make it that high, but I'm just, like I said, I'd like to cut it really large at first. And I'm not going to be using any of this, but I'm just going to leave it just for now, because I can always lay it on top and then come up from the bottom after I tape it down, and then actually draw my line and cut it out from on the bottom side, and I can go up through the floor. But I do want to just work with a smaller piece, so this will work for now, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, lay it in the truck, see how it looks. So I got my piece all straight cut out, and then I Alright, so I got my piece all straight and deburred. I took it on the belt sander, just went up and down a few times, so now it's pretty much straight and won't cut my finger off. And so for first test fit, not terrible. Obviously, you can see where the line is. I'm got a lot of extra material up here, so I need to cut off a pretty good amount there, which I will mark. And then now that I think about it, I did purposely cut this large, but if you think about it, I only cut about a ½ inch to where I need on width wise, which is actually pretty good because you can see I got a hole there and I slide it up. I don't really have that much to take off. I got about 2 inches on the top, 2.5 inches I need to take off on the top, and then I got to take off this entire top piece. So yeah, I'm pretty much gonna start by marking up the top. Or actually, I don't know, should I do the width or the top? I don't know, I'll find whichever one I want to do first and then mark it and then go up a hair from that, cut it, and then try it again and just keep doing it over and over and over again. This is gonna be a long process, so I'll come back when it kind of fits. All right, so I've got it kind of fitting now, which is kind of cool. So you can see I've got these little clamps. These I got from Harbor Freight. I can't remember the exact name. I'll show you in a second. They're just little clamps that got a little thing you slide in on the bottom. You can get them from a lot of car restoration places, but I just got them at Harbor Freight because they're cheap. Same with these little magnets. And so I've got a pretty big gap going down the side, but that's just because the plate is perfectly flat, but the cab floor is not because I did it with an angle grinder. Up here, the tolerance is perfect, literally perfect. Look at that. Oh man, I like that. That fits really good. So I need to take a piece of tape and go across the top here because I know it's a flat line there. And so how I'll mark this is I have a piece of soapstone here. And so it's all clamped up from the bottom. Then anything I need to cut, I can simply just take this and just kind of like give it a good little mark. But if you like, say you do your mark and you don't like it, it'll pretty much just come right off. This is a little bit more dull. Works really good on that. Doesn't really work as well on the panel I need it to work on, which kind of sucks. But you can use any sort of white marker or something, so you can pretty much go above this. Give me kind of a guesstimate of where I need to be. You can see where my old line kind of was, so I'm kind of glad. That's why I say don't go all the way to your line wherever you draw it, because I fit pretty good here. There's also a gap because of these little pin pieces that are in here, but that'll close up once I have this end fitting, because up here I think is a good reason why it's not sliding up. So once I cut that down and actually get this piece kind of sitting in there, it'll sit a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the back off in the front and then try to get it to sit a little bit better. All right, so we're getting very close, barely off up top, but if I put it in like over here, it's kind of hard to do with one hand. So if I put this in like that, there it is. Okay, so you can see that line's perfect. This has to be bent back just a hair, which I can probably do with my fingers. There we go. So you can see that line's perfect, that line's perfect. It starts to overlap right here. And if I kind of pull it down, it's almost perfect, almost. It's probably gonna be a little bit more bending and wiggling to get it in there, but I just don't really, I want it to look legit. I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. I want it to sand the edges and you not even notice it. So that's why I'm taking so much time with it. You don't really need to if you're just covering with a carpet, but this is my truck. I want to do a good job, so I'm just taking a long time. I've been doing it, been at this for probably about 2.5 hours or so, just kind of trying to get this thing to fit. Just fitting it, taking it over to the belt sander, sanding a little bit off, coming back, fitting it again, and it just takes forever. Finally got it all fitted in, pretty happy with it. Everything looks very good, fits well enough. I mean, it is a floor, and so I'll pretty much just stitch weld the parts that are really close together, and then I'll probably move these guys all around. I got my ground. I went ahead and ground out a clean little spot on the cab itself, and I got a little Lincoln 140 with some CO2 and argon, and now I'm gonna go ahead and weld them together. Alright guys, so it's the next day. It's currently 112 degrees out right now. It sucks. And this is what I'm doing right now. So I'm pretty much just going out and grinding everything flat. which was where I was welding. I haven't really finished at all, but it's just so hot that my grinder is overheating constantly. So it's going to take me all day to grind this down properly and re-weld it and then finish it off. So I'll pretty much grind it flat, and then any low spots or anywhere, I'll put another tack in, and then I'll grind that. And then I'll go back originally and I'll re-grind this ledge so it's completely factory looking, and sand it, primer it, paint it, we'll be done. So this video is pretty long, but I hope this would help you guys out. I did make this video for you guys that are doing the floor pan. I posted it on my Instagram story, the whole process, kind of like as I was going through it. A lot of you guys seem interested, so I did make this video for you guys that are looking to do that floor pan. Just a big note is not to cut that extra section of the cab that goes below it. Would not cut that out because you want that extra support below it, holding it. So just take that into consideration. Let me know what you do think down below. Any questions, concerns, I will help answer them. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Let me know what you do think down in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.